Hello, and welcome to Dining with Death, True Crime Tuesday. Before we begin, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and if you really want to support the community, you can join my Patreon. We have a really big goal there, and I will talk about that at the end of the video. I chose this story today for several reasons. One, it's simply a fascinating story that I know many of you will enjoy hearing. But the second reason has to do with something I've mentioned in previous episodes. I see a lot of talk lately about demons and people that are possessed on my TikTok comments. And it bothers me because demons are not responsible for human behavior. Humans are responsible for human behavior. But I also see a lot of comments about people who do evil things where others are saying this person is crazy. Now, crazy is a more complex issue than demons. Crazy isn't actually an official diagnosis. The mental health community doesn't use that word. But when people commit an atrocious act, they are very often not in their right mind. But it very rarely has to do with mental illness. People who are actually mentally ill. Only 3 to 5% of crime is committed by people who are mentally ill. It is a very, very small percentage. Substance abuse, for example, is a much greater indicator as to who might commit a violent crime. The mentally ill are not only not responsible for most crime, like I said, they are actually much less likely to commit serious crimes than people who are not mentally ill. But there's a very big gray area here. When can we truly say that anyone is in their right mind when they do something unthinkable? It doesn't mean they're mentally ill, so what are they? This is why our mental status and our mental health comes into play when we're talking about people who commit evil acts. If someone is in their right mind, how are they able to commit such horrible acts? My friends, it happens every single day, multiple times, all over the world. Today we are talking about a man with mental illness. He was difficult to deal with, he was angry, and people were convinced he was dangerous. As you listen to this story today, you might come to dislike the man at the center of our story, but I promise you, just when you think you know where this tale is headed, it takes one of the most shocking and unexpected twists of any story I can think of. Today, we are talking about Ramsay Scrivo and an incredibly gruesome and horrific find on the side of a snowy Michigan road. This is the story of the trash bags murder. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's get into it. January 30th, 2014. Two women are headed down a rural, snow-covered road in St. Clair County, Michigan. They are on their way to pick up their children from elementary school. And as they drive down this road, they see something that looks very out of place. There are several large black trash bags dumped on the side of the road, placed there in a grouping and then kind of sorted down the road in almost a path. Now, I don't know what normal people do when they see trash bags on the side of the road that look out of place, but I think it's safe to say most of us here in this community, we want to know what's in them. I'm stopping on the side of the road. I'm looking. I'm that person. I'm most likely holding my sidearm when I go to investigate, but I'm looking. Now, these women were curious as well. One of the women left the vehicle and walked towards the trash bags, and the first thing she noticed was the odor, the familiar and instantly recognizable smell of blood. Maybe the bags were full of deer parts. Perhaps a deer hunter shot a deer, gutted it, and then dumped the innards on the side of the road because he didn't want to be bothered with properly disposing of them. That's what this woman was hoping for. That is not what she found. As she moves one of the bag's openings aside just slightly, she is horrified to see a decapitated human head. These bags are not full of deer guts. The women immediately call 911 and police officers arrive at the scene moments later. The lead deputy approached the trash bags and opened one of them. Inside, clearly visible, was a human foot. The foot was in a different bag than the decapitated head. Just what exactly did they have here? Was this multiple people murdered and butchered and thrown on the side of the road? Or was this one person who had been cut up into several pieces and placed in different trash bags? And why were the trash bags just sitting on the side of the road? Why hadn't the person who dumped them made any effort at all to cover them up? Perhaps throw some branches over them, move them behind the trees. They didn't do any of that. There was zero effort to hide these trash bags. Whoever dumped them simply pulled up in their vehicle, set the trash bags on the side of the road, and then drove away. The police then noticed the bags kind of up the path from the initial grouping. And so they went to those, not knowing what they were going to find. In the next bag was a second foot and what appeared to be the upper portion of a human thigh. Up ahead of this bag were some body parts just laying in the road, and they went to investigate that. There was another foot, another piece of leg, and then across the roads lay a human buttocks laying in the snow. Oh, why is that image particularly disturbing? I don't know. The police continued up the road, following what is surely the most gruesome trail of metaphorical breadcrumbs ever, and they come to another bag. This one contains a human torso. It had been cut several different ways, as though the butcher was trying to get it into smaller pieces but couldn't. The bag that the torso had been dumped in was torn and had blown a few feet away. It appeared as though animals had tried to get into the contents of the bag. The next trash bag up the road was full of paperwork and a power tool, and it was obvious that that was the tool that had been used to cut up the body. Not far from that, there was just a pile of human organs and a pool of blood. The area was cordoned off and more officers were brought in to begin working the crime scene. About 12 hours later, around 4:30 a.m., a retired police officer who was driving near the road and who was aware of the discovery saw a black trash bag on an on-ramp near I-94. Now, normally he wouldn't have stopped, but knowing what had been found in this area, he felt he should, and it's a good thing he did. The retired cop stopped his vehicle and opened the bag. Inside was the box for a skill saw, and there was also some clothing. Someone had attempted to light the box of the saw and the articles of clothing on fire. So the retired officer got back in his car and called the police, and that additional bag was taken into custody as well. One by one, part by part, the police pieced the body back together. There was an arm, a thigh, a torso, another arm, a lower leg, and so on. 5 used jigsaw blades were dumped with the body that they had sawed through, along with 9 unused matchsticks. There were a couple of towels, the actual jigsaw itself, and lots of other bits. The only thing that was completely missing was the right arm. Officers believe it had been taken by an animal. The morbid packages were hauled to police headquarters, and then, of course, the process of answering the most obvious question began. Who was in the trash bags? May 10th, 1981. Ramsay Scrivo was born to Donna Scrivo, a nurse, and her husband Dan. Donna worked at St. John Hospital in Detroit for a time while she was raising her son Ramsay, who graduated from high school in 1999. Ramsay tried college life, but it just didn't take. He actually changed schools several times. There was something wrong in Ramsay's life that always seemed to be an obstacle for him. He did manage to graduate from Wayne State University with a degree in accounting, but he never found any success working in that field. Ramsay worked a couple of different construction jobs, and then he tried the insurance field for a while. He actually started his own lawn maintenance company at some point in time, but Ramsay always struggled, and that's because he was mentally ill. Ramsay had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and his symptoms often affected his employment. He had times of great anxiety, and then he would experience spells of depression, dotted with severe paranoia. When his disease got very, very bad, he would often self-medicate with alcohol. Alcohol abuse is very common in people with mental illness, and Ramsay was no different. Ramsay started drinking as a teenager to deal with his anxiety, and he never really stopped. There would be periods of time when Ramsay would try to stay sober, and most people close to him don't believe he drank every day, but he drank a lot, too much. And then Ramsay's father died. Dan Scrivo had suffered a long battle with hepatitis C, and after he died, Ramsay's mental health declined rapidly. In fact, the day after Dan died, Ramsay's family members admitted him to the hospital. They were concerned that he had taken his father's bottle of morphine, and they were so concerned that Ramsay might be suicidal, they felt he had to be hospitalized. An investigation found that Ramsay hadn't ingested the pills yet, and after he was examined, he was released. But his problems only continued, and they got worse. Ramsay started drinking more heavily, and he was spending a lot of time in the local bars. Then he started getting very belligerent and hard to reason with. He was very, very angry, and he was volatile. And before long, Ramsay was in a bar fight, and then another, and then another. Soon the bar fights were almost a weekly occurrence. His behavior was getting more and more violent. Donna Scrivo, Ramsay's mother, was having problems of her own. She was dealing with the loss of her husband, and then her house burned down. She lost a lot of what she owned, and as a result, she was forced to move in with Ramsay, who was in his early 30s at the time. Donna and Ramsay had always had a difficult relationship, but with her living in his home, tensions got worse. Donna was concerned that Ramsay was going to really hurt someone, and she began scheduling appointments with legal guardian experts and mental health professionals that work in the field of placing people under supervision. Ramsay and Donna would argue, and at times Ramsay said he was going to end his own life. Donna then petitioned the court for guardianship of her son, and that gave her the legal right to make decisions for Ramsay, even though he was an adult. This caused a lot of arguing between mother and son. And when Ramsay found out that his mother had been granted a legal guardianship over him, he was enraged. Now, Ramsay is a very large guy, well over 250 pounds, very stocky, and Donna is small and frail, especially for a woman of only 59 years old. She looks very tiny and very fragile. Ramsay viewed his mother moving in with him and then getting guardianship over him as a threat to his freedom. So he was dealing with his own anger, and he was dealing with the grief and the loss of his father. And then on top of that, he has this mental illness exacerbated by alcohol abuse. It was not a good situation. Relatives even offered to have Ramsay come and stay with them because they knew with his mother living with him and the way they argued, the house was a tinderbox waiting to explode. As you can probably imagine, Ramsay didn't want to move out of his own house, but he also didn't want his mother there. Well, she had nowhere else to go, and apparently was having a very difficult time dealing with the death of her husband. So all in all, things were not going well in the Scrivo family, but it was about to get much, much worse. September 2013. Ramsay Scrivo begins to act very strangely. His mother, Donna, is convinced that he is not taking his medication, and as a result, his mental health is in steep and rapid decline. One day, Donna walks in on Ramsay standing by the bathroom sink. He has ripped a dental crown out of his mouth, and he is raving that he had to do it. Ramsay told his mother that the dental crown had a speaker implanted in it, and the speaker was being used to transmit his thoughts and words to the government. This type of very serious delusion was new for Ramsay Scrivo. Donna had never seen him this bad before, and so she engages her power as legal guardian, and she has Ramsay hospitalized. After the initial examination, doctors confirm Ramsay is having a period of psychosis. Everyone involved knows that Ramsay is violent even when he is not psychotic, and they know this is a very dangerous period. Ramsay was already on probation for assault, a charge that stemmed from one of his many bar fights. He couldn't deal with another charge. Ramsay and his friend Frank had gotten into a fight one night, and Frank had pushed Ramsay, who fell and hit his head. Donna believed that this blow resulted in more brain damage for Ramsay. A few days after that fight, Ramsay heard that his friend Frank was at a local restaurant, so he just went to the restaurant and attacked Frank out of the blue while he was sitting there having dinner. After Ramsay attacked his friend, he got in his car and drove off, and he ended up crashing the car, and as a result, he was in more trouble, more charges. In these situations, it really is often a dominoes effect, one bad decision after another. And I feel really sorry for people who get in these situations, people that end up maybe homeless or without a job. It's, their car breaks down. They don't have enough money to fix the car. So they steal something to get money to fix the car. Then they get in trouble for stealing. So then they've got no car and court charges on top of that. Then they can't pay the court charges. So then they go to jail. You know what I mean? It just kind of turns into one thing after another. And I see it a lot with the people that I work with in my private life. And I see it a lot here in the work that I do for Dining with Death. One bad thing, a lot of us in this country are 1 or 2 paychecks away from having nothing. It's really sad. Before this period of psychosis, Ramsay had a group of friends. They cared about him. They often got together and watched movies, they played cards, they drank a few beers. And even though Ramsay was thought of as a bit awkward, he did have people who cared about him. But after his dad died and Donna moved in, everything had really gone to pot. And when Ramsay got really depressed, he hated taking his medications. He always had a fear that he was going to become addicted to his medications. That was kind of his excuse for not wanting to take them. But at the same time, he's drinking. Alcohol is pretty much the most addictive substance on earth, and he drank all the time. His loved ones tried to reason with Ramsay about his thinking on all of this, his medication, his drinking, but it was really difficult. Once again, Ramsay was released from the hospital. Once again, he returned home to his small apartment with his mother living inside, and once again, the arguing began. This time, though, it was worse than ever. Ramsay began to tell people close to him that someone was trying to poison him, and they thought that was part of his delusion. At times, Ramsay even accused his mother of trying to poison him. He would go on and on about the fact that his food tasted strange, and he was convinced someone wanted him dead. By Christmas time 2013, the fights had become epic. Donna and Ramsay had always been pretty good at keeping their arguments behind closed doors. People close to them knew about the volatile fights, but the neighbors weren't aware as to how bad they got. Then a neighbor began to smell a strange smell coming from the Scrivo apartment. It was a very strong chemical smell, but the neighbor couldn't quite place it. At times, it also smelled like something was burning, and then other times it was just this really strong chemical smell. It did cross the neighbor's mind that this might be Ramsay acting strangely. He had told her he was conducting experiments a few weeks earlier, and when she asked him what he meant by that, he couldn't really articulate. Then this same neighbor started to hear pounding sounds. The pounding went on, and this woman thought, what on earth could he be building in that small apartment? And then she began to hear the sound of a saw. She knew it was a power saw, and she could hear it turning off and on during the day for about 3 days, and then it all stopped. There was a second neighbor named Patricia that would often watch Ramsay's dogs for him. Patricia also had dogs, and Ramsay and Patricia had become friendly. Whenever Ramsay saw Patricia leave her apartment to go and walk her dogs, he would either come out of his apartment or stick his head out of his apartment and say hi to her. Whenever Ramsay walked from his apartment to the nearest convenience store to buy cigarettes, Patricia would visit with him for a few minutes. But towards the end of January, Patricia noticed Ramsay was obviously staying in the house. She hadn't seen him for days. She wondered how he was getting his cigarettes, and she wondered who was walking his dogs, but she wasn't too concerned yet. Now, Patricia had also heard the banging and the sawing coming from Ramsay's apartment. She didn't go into as much detail as the other neighbor did, but she did say later on that it was strange. No one had seen Ramsay or anyone coming in or out of his apartment for days now. So at this point in time, you're pretty sure as to what's happened here, right? You think you know what's going on? Well, I can almost promise you, like I had it wrong, you've probably got it wrong. January 31st, 2014.
As deputies await the results of the autopsy, they're following several leads in their investigation of the human remains found scattered across a rural stretch of road in and out of garbage bags just about a mile away from I-94 in China Township.
And we're tracking down leads at this point of missing people and trying to do identification.
They're not ruling out if there could be more remains scattered in the area. They're relying on the public's help to solve this mystery. This isn't the first time human remains have been dumped in this county, but nothing quite like this. The St. Clair County Sheriff's Department is treating this case as a homicide. Their investigation began after a neighbor reported garbage bags scattered on the side of the road and called police. In those bags, deputies found body parts. Around 5 this morning, a tip led investigators just minutes from yesterday's scene to the entrance ramp to westbound I-94 off Fred Moore Highway, where they found clothing and charred paperwork in a garbage bag. They're trying to determine the bag's connection to the human remains found yesterday.
As you heard in that clip, the police state they are going to autopsy the body and then release more information to the public. They don't confirm or deny speculation as to how the person was killed or by who. The public is horrified at the details that begin to come out over the next few days. The condition of the body was gruesome. It had not only been dismembered, but the butcher had tried to use chemicals to dissolve parts of the body. Remember the neighbor who said she kept smelling a very strange chemical smell, one she couldn't quite put her finger on? When the chemicals failed to dissolve the body parts, they had been lit on fire. And again, remember the neighbor had said she smelled something burning. The power tools seem to have been the last resort after the chemicals and the fire didn't work. So the question going around town was, what type of monster could do something like this? Someone capable of such ghoulish behavior must be mentally ill, right? Must be strong and powerful and brutal and violent. Someone like Ramsay Scrivo. Or perhaps someone who raised someone like Ramsay Scrivo. That's right, my friends. The body cut up in pieces was not butchered by Ramsay Scrivo. The body was Ramsay Scrivo, and he had been murdered and dismembered by his mother, Donna. Days before the discovery of the body parts, Donna Scrivo called the police on January 27th and reported that her adult mentally ill son, Ramsay, was missing. The police took a report and figured Ramsay would turn up later on. 3 days later, when the news of the trash bags broke, Donna Scrivo made a call to the police station. She said, "Hi, this is Donna Scrivo. A few days ago, I reported my son as missing, and I just heard the news of those trash bags with body parts in them, and I'm worried it's my son." Donna. I mean, you just never know, right? People can look so timid and be so evil. It's wild. Donna Scrivo wasn't the only person calling the police station. Donna had some neighbors with a few things to say themselves. Police started to get reports from the neighbors that they had seen Donna carrying heavy black trash bags to her car. People started to call in saying that they'd been asking Donna where Ramsay was because they hadn't seen him around for a few days, and that Donna had told them he'd taken off and gone missing, but that she is a very private person and she didn't want word to get around. She said it was embarrassing to have a son that caused so much trouble, and she just wanted everyone to stay out of it. And then witnesses began to call the police, stating they had seen a car on the road where the trash bags had been dumped, and that it was a white, older woman hauling very heavy trash bags out of that car. It was an SUV, to be exact. What was the color of the SUV? The same car and the same color as the one Donna drove. With all of this information, police went to Donna Scrivo's apartment, to Ramsay's apartment, and asked her to come in for questioning. Donna sat quietly in the police interrogation room as the investigation continued. After questioning and neighbors calling in with all of this information, police were able to get an arrest warrant. Donna was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and charges related to unlawful handling and disposal of a human body. People were absolutely shocked to hear that this man's own mother had been charged and arrested with not only killing her son, but her son with a mental illness, a vulnerable person. That alone was shocking. But then finding out what she had done to her son after killing him, it was like almost too much. People couldn't wrap their minds around it. I still can't wrap my mind around it. People who knew Donna came forward and said they were almost speechless. They stuttered and stammered as they tried to explain to the media that yes, Donna and Ramsay had always had a difficult relationship, but that Donna truly seemed to love her son and that she was always genuinely concerned about him. She got guardianship so she could force him to take his medication, so she could hospitalize him if he wouldn't take the medication. And she tried to do everything she could to ensure that her son would be well taken care of. I mean, she took care of him. Wow. Donna Scrivo hired a defense attorney, and then she was sent off to jail to await her murder trial. As she did so, more information became available to the public, and it was, as this whole case is, very disturbing.
Well, tonight, the local 4 defenders learning new and some surprising information on the Ramsay Scrivo murder investigation.
That's right. Sources close to the case reveal how Scrivo may have died. And for the first time, we're seeing a report which explains why Ramsay Scrivo feared someone was trying to poison him. Local 4 defender Hank Winchester joins us now live with more. Good evening, Hank.
Carmen, Devin, good evening to both of you. As you mentioned, surprising and new information in this ongoing investigation, including information about how Ramsay Scrivo may have been killed. And also these documents, reports that months before his actual murder, Ramsay Scrivo revealed to his own mother that he was concerned that someone was trying to poison him. What happened to Ramsay Scrivo? His mother now locked up. Investigators say that Donna Scrivo dismembered his body. But now the defenders learning new information about how Ramsay may have died. And these documents just obtained by the defenders reveal why the toxicology report is key. In the months before his death, Ramsay Scrivo revealed he feared someone was trying to poison him. More on that in a moment. Sources close to the investigation telling the defenders there are no visible gunshot wounds on the remains collected, and it's believed the person responsible for this murder may have strangled Ramsay Scrivo to death. Here's former Detroit police detective Tom Barry.
When somebody's strangled, almost always it's somebody that you knew. So in this particular case, you have a mother and son. I got to believe that's gonna show up on here. You don't have too many strangers walking up and strangling somebody for the manner of death. So what we learned from homicide, from all the schools that we put on and that we have, is that usually means that you knew the victim.
Death by strangulation right now is a major focus in the case, but other possibilities can't be ruled out. And here's why toxicology is so important. In this petition of guardianship filed last year by Donna Scrivo, she revealed her son was taking several prescription medications, including Xanax. She also revealed that her son was suicidal. And look here, Donna also told those evaluating her son that he believed a friend of the family was trying to poison him. The medical examiner waiting for all the pieces of this complicated puzzle to come together.
Those toxicology reports are going to show, was he drugged? Was he on something? Did she numb him up? Did she knock him out? Or did she not?
Back out here live, again, the medical examiner waiting on those toxicology reports, not releasing any official cause of death just yet. In the meantime, Donna Scrivo remains locked up in the Macomb County Jail. She remains on suicide watch, and we're also told she is not cooperating with this investigation.
May 2015. In a packed courtroom, Donna Scrivo is led to the defense table for the first day of opening statements and witness testimony. She looks older than her 62 years. She is small, she is frail, and she is timid. There is nothing about this woman that makes you think psychopathic murderer capable of butchering a 250-pound man, cutting him into pieces, and dumping him on the side of the road. The prosecution began to call witnesses who testified that Ramsay had been heavily drugged with Xanax and had then been suffocated to death before being dismembered. What do you think Donna had to say? The first time I heard this story, I was convinced she was going to go with, he was having a psychotic episode and he attacked me, he was violent, he was out of control, and I had to defend myself. Well, I was wrong. Donna had a completely different story to tell. She was the last witness to testify in her own trial. Donna took the stand and immediately began to cry. She said she walked into the 2-story condo one day and found an armed and masked man in her son's room. She claims this man turned to her and said, "Oh, hello, Mrs. Scrivo. I didn't know you were home." Donna claimed that this intruder killed her son and then forced her to help him cut Ramsay up into pieces, put the body parts in bags, and dump them along the road. As you would expect, the prosecution scoffed at this story, and then Donna goes on the offense. I would love to play you more of her on the stand, but the court microphone must have been a potato because you cannot hear a damned thing. The attorney keeps telling Donna to speak up, but the mic is like off to the side. No one pushed it forward. She's very soft-spoken. You cannot hear anything. And I don't like it when I'm listening to true crime episodes and they play really bad audio, so I'm not going to do that to you guys. Witnesses testify as to the manner of death, toxicology, and the prosecution even brings in a piece of surveillance video where Donna is seen on tape purchasing the saw that was used to dismember her son. And in the end, the jury did its job.
Begin right now with that breaking news. A verdict just in on the Donna Scrivo trial. She is the woman accused of killing and dismembering her own son.
7 investigator Jonathan Carlson live in the newsroom with all the breaking details. Jonathan, you've been following this close.
Yeah, hey there, guys. She learned her fate just moments ago. Listen in.
Count 1, first-degree murder of Ramsay Scrivo. Guilty of first-degree murder of Ramsay Scrivo. Count 2, dead bodies, disinterment and mutilation. Guilty of disinterment and mutilation of a dead body. Count 3, dead bodies removing without medical examiner permission. Guilty of removing a dead body without medical examiner permission.
As you can see, she looked surprised but otherwise showed no major emotion as that verdict was read. This followed a dramatic day in court. 61-year-old Donna Scrivo appearing tired and worn. The former nurse, the final witness, accused in the St. Clair Shores murder and dismemberment of her son Ramsay. Scrivo claimed a masked man killed her son and threatened her and her family with death if she told a soul. Prosecutors say she drugged and strangled her own child, cutting him up with a power saw and dumping his remains. The evidence not in her favor. Security video shows her buying the saw used to kill her son, and DNA evidence was found in her car. Nonetheless, today she told the tale of being forced to witness the murder and its aftermath.
It was propped up against the side of his bed in his bedroom, and he wasn't breathing.
How are you certain he was dead?
I didn't see him breathing. I looked for his chest to move. I didn't see him breathe.
How do you feel about this story? It's not difficult to feel a little sorry for Donna Scrivo before she did what she did. Her husband died, her house burned down, she had a son with a severe mental illness that caused all kinds of stress and legal problems, and I'm sure embarrassment for her. You could easily see how she might have snapped. Snapping doesn't include the pre-planning it takes to drug someone so heavily that they can be suffocated. Snapping doesn't include strangling them for over 4 minutes, and snapping definitely does not include spending days and days cutting up a body, trying to dissolve it, burn it, dumping it, and one thing I know for damn sure, snapping doesn't include getting on the witness stand and making up a really wild story about a home invader. We talk a lot about mental illness on this channel, and we talk a lot about mental disorders, including depression and anxiety, things I struggle with, things that are much more common than Ramsay's disease. The other thing we talk a lot about here is evil. Evil is much harder to define than mental illness. There is no board of medical experts to calculate and quantify the parameters of evil. There is no book like the DSM that defines the different types of evil. But we sure as hell know that evil exists. And if you ask me, evil lives in Donna Scrivo. It just took a while for it to come out. Thank you for joining me today on Dining with Death, True Crime Tuesday. Hit the like button if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and you can always join my Patreon. I give this spiel at the end of the video, but I'm really coming upon the time I want to start doing this. By joining Patreon, you keep the channel alive. That's all that's keeping it alive at this point. But in the end, we are going to do fundraisers to raise money to donate to police departments that have cold case DNA in storage that's never been tested. There are thousands of sexual assault kits in refrigeration all over the country. And as a community, we would like to pick a case that we want to get the DNA tested on, pay for that DNA testing, and then hopefully help solve the case. The other thing that's a byproduct of that is that we get that perpetrator's DNA in the system. So instead of it just sitting in cold storage, it's now in the system. And if they've committed other crimes, we might be able to get hits on those other crimes. I know it's a big goal, I know it's a lofty goal, but I really feel like we can get there. It's taking longer than I thought it would to get there, but I still want to do it. Thank you so much for joining me today, my friends. I really appreciate your support, more than I will ever be able to tell you. Stay safe and be kind to each other, and I will see you next time on Dining with Death. Bye.